2018, which is, of course, the Independence Day edition of the program. I am Kirian Umai, welcoming you, and as well as, of course, wishing you a happy Independence celebration.
I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Kirian and also welcome you to the program and wishing you a wonderful, happy, and lovely Independence Day anniversary. As usual, in the course of the program, we have our regular companion segments. This will be newspaper review, business, sports, foreign, and others. In the meantime, we're taking the highlights of the morning news now with our colleague, Bintu Aliu Sumono. Hello, Bintu, and happy Independence Day.
Hello, Kirian.
The Nigerian Television Authority News 24 channel, your dependable all-round news station, offering you world-class news programs, documentaries, spotlights, promos, and information highlights. Take advantage of our network reach and advertise your interest, goods and services with us. NTA News 24, first among equals with digital broadcasting. You can reach us on Channel 21 Terrestrial TV and Channel 101 on the StarTimes platform. For more inquiries, please call Coretta 0803 618 9986 or Henry on 0803 379 0884. Join us today.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
We're really apologizing for the loss of audio at the commencement of the morning news. Now the news continues. President Muhammadu Buhari is reassuring Nigerians that he will continue to work tirelessly towards promoting, protecting, and preserving all that matters for a united, prosperous, and secured Nigeria. In a nationwide broadcast to mark Nigeria's 58th independence anniversary, the president said developing a thriving democracy is not an easy task, but his administration is committed to supporting genuine initiatives aimed at addressing prevailing socio-economic challenges for a sustainable future.
We are gradually strengthening the economy with a stable naira and falling inflation rate. We are building an economy that is moving away from over-reliance on oil. These positive developments are the result of our collective pursuit of a common vision through hard work and dedication after the missed opportunities and disappointments that followed the return to democracy. Shameful past practice of the brazen theft of billions of naira is no more. Shady oil deals and public contracts that were never delivered have become things of the past. Consequently, we have done more with less in infrastructural developments.
Now, the organized labor has suspended its nationwide warning strike embarked upon over new minimum wage. The leadership of the unions, represented by the NLC President Ayuba Waba, told journalists at a briefing in Abuja.
We demanded that this shall be the final session of the committee's assignment and that a final report will then be submitted to Mr. President immediately. In order to avail the committee the necessary conducive environment to hold this crucial meeting and conclude its work, organized labor has, after obtaining the mandate of their necessary organs, decided to suspend the ongoing warning strike.
Labour thanked workers and affiliate unions for their commitment and determination. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has accepted the resignation of Senator Aisha Jummai Al-Hassan as Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development from the government with immediate effect. A statement signed by Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity, Garba Shehu, stated that President Buhari thanked Aisha Al-Hassan for her service to the nation and has directed the affairs of the Minister of Women Affairs and Social Development be looked after by Aisha Abubakar, the Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment, with immediate effect. Now, the task force set up by the Nigerian Army has recovered the vehicle belonging to retired Major General Idris Al-Kali. The vehicle was recovered from an abandoned mining pond in Duradu village, just south local government area of Plateau State.
We have searched. We've not seen the body yet, but we'll continue. We know what to do.
The sum total of it is that this pond contains a lot of hidden secrets, and we are determined to unveil.
And that's the morning news. Good morning, Nigeria. We'll be back in a short while with Kingsley and Kirian. Happy Independence celebration.
Time to explore. Looks like a fun way to learn. Awesome! And this, I can learn a new language. We are music. And I can learn to play an instrument too? Cool! Games everywhere! Wow! Freebies! Free data, WhatsApp, and birthday credits? I love it here. I'm never leaving.
Play, explore, and learn with MTN Impulse.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem frontally through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and presently I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime, we bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Hello, Auntie Kay. How is Atlanta? I'm just getting ready for a photo shoot. Got my makeup on.
Hey, Klaus, how you doing? How is Germany?
Hold on, 1 minute.
I haven't seen the containers yet. Oh, they are still in India?
Hello, Mama. Guess who's online?
Hey, Rajesh, what time is it in India?
How is South Africa, Mama? Aren't you spending too much on calls now?
Don't you worry about it, Mama, because with Glow, you only need to pay 200 Naira a month and you get up to 85% discount on all calls to over 200 international destinations.
I'm going to let you guys
I have to go now.
Right?
Time for the photo shoot. Love you. Bye.
Where's the photographer?
Hey, my friend. How are things going in Canada?
Glow International Call Slasher. Pay 200 Naira monthly fee to get up to 85% discount to call over 200 international destinations. Dial *777# to choose your plan. The largest data network. Glow. Grandmasters of data.
Winning in hot and dry conditions is hard. Causes the body to sweat, which attracts germs that are easily passed from one person to another. What keeps you so cool, man? Dettol Cool combines Dettol's protection and an invincible icy feel. For super cool confidence, use Dettol Cool.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 Naira only.
You in the air-conditioned office with the itchy throat. Strepsils. Girl in the spotlight with the raspy throat. Strepsils. You in the pollution. Yes, you. Dry throat. Strepsils. Hello in the downpour with the scratchy throat. Take Strepsils.
Strepsils, with its soothing medicinal ingredients, will heal the harm done to your throat from external factors.
Strepsils. Strepsils.
Strepsils, for a dry, itchy, raspy, scratchy throat.
If you just tuned in, this is Good Morning Nigeria, the special Independence edition of the program. And next for us now is to take a newspaper review.
Our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atebe, is with us from the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the program and happy Independence Anniversary.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning,
And you can see that
good morning, Nigeria.
Is in the right attire this morning for this celebration.
I see.
Of course.
You envy my green?
I do, really.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's take a look at the papers that we have this morning. We have 4 of them, out of which we'll take an editorial from one. Politics, of course, continues to dominate. Unfortunately, the papers we have do not have the president's highlights of the president broadcast as lead. There are stories, however, arising from the president broadcast. Daily Trust is our first port of call. Daily Trust has as its headline the lead story: Ambode vows to fight for APC ticket, hits Sanwo-Olu, and why we want change in Lagos by Tinubu. That's the lead story for the Daily Trust newspaper. And immediately below the nameplate of the paper, 2 headlines: we remain committed to free and credible elections, according to President Muhammadu Buhari. That's on page 6. On page 10, Labour calls off strike to continue talks with federal government. And then the photograph on the front page of the paper shows the president sympathizing with one of the survivors of the Nigerian Air Force jet mishap that occurred in Abuja as part of the rehearsals for today's independence anniversary celebrations. And the story is in greater detail on page 10, but that's the photograph of the president sympathizing with one of the survivors. Now, at the foot of the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, many fear dead as crisis rocks Jos. That's on page 4. And the latest on the APC and PDP governorship primaries can be found on page 16 of the Daily Trust. And why I endorsed Professor Zulum as my successor by Kashim Shettima, who is the outgoing governor of Borno State.
All right, now let's turn to the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper above the nameplate. Labour suspends strike once negotiations concluded is on page 89. Governorship primaries. Ibazo, Adelabu, Emmanuel, Makinde, Okowa, Wike, others win governorship tickets. It's on pages 24 and 89 of the Punch. And just by the side of the nameplate, I will continue to work for a united Nigeria, Buhari promises. Full text of that story is on page 15. Now, the lead headline here this morning on The Punch, 2019, Sanwo-Olu not fit to govern Lagos, says Ambode, is on page 10. And as Tinubu formally endorses as commissioner, I will play high if they are playing low, says Sanwo-Olu. Governor urges free, fair, credible primary. That's Ambode. Now, below the photograph on the Punch newspaper, we have some stories there. Federal government to use own land for ranches is on page 45. Policemen arrested for brutalizing Lagos businessman on bank premises on page 4 and 5. And then Kole Abe emerged winners as explosions rock APC parallel primaries. That's in River State. It's on page 95 of the Punch newspaper. Let's turn to Bio now. For
today is
analysis.
Nigeria's 58th independence anniversary, and wish our compatriots happy independence anniversary. Expectedly, parades are supposed to be organized at the state level. President Muhammadu Buhari, in a while ago in a national broadcast, congratulated Nigerians on the 58th independence anniversary, and he said lessons are there to be learned and that there are no quick fixes in development as far as democracy is concerned. And he assured INEC will truly be independent in the way it will conduct the 2019 general elections. He says, farmers' headers clashes, which is neither ethnic nor religious, is being addressed decisively. He also warned that rather than use technology to provoke passion and stir tension, Nigerians should endeavor to use the social media, particularly for knowledge and understanding. On corruption, he said, the brazen theft of billions in the past is no more. And with infrastructure, the president emphasized that development of roads, rails, schools, and power to create an enabling environment is providing the atmosphere for investment and to better the society generally. He said that all of us should reflect all the time on the things that bind us together. President Muhammadu Buhari, who just returned from the United Nations General Assembly, actually had to visit victims of the aircraft accident that happened on Friday in a hospital. Squadron leader Bello Baba Ali, who bowed out during the crash and died, had been buried since Friday. The president joined the millions of our nationals and the nation, the family, and also the Air Force to mourn the loss. Two other pilots who sustained injury were in hospital where the president visited. However, sadly, the Air Force spokesman indicated that the second pilot probably also has died. On that sad note, he brought the gloom, the rehearsals, which was meant to be part of the area show. Interesting story for the strike. And the firm and form to recommence the tripartite meeting at an emergency meeting just before the tripartite will be reconvened on 4th of October. Nevertheless, Labour still went on strike. However, the chief of staff to the president, Alhaji Abba Kyari, called Labour to find out why the strike and assured them of government commitment to the minimum wage. Labour said it will reverse to Congress and return, and Labour returned and called off the strike on Sunday, declaring that the warning strike has been called off. The question to ask is that, why did Labour go on strike in the first place? Because Minister categorically said October 4th, the tripartite meeting will resume. They went on a strike protesting that. And from all confirmation they got from the Chief of Staff is that the tripartite meeting will resume 4th and 5th of October. In fact, the Daily Trust had a headline on September 26th on October 4th, and Labour...
And to the fact that the governors should actually bring in their own fee, the greater in the states. The input from with a figure that people all of
also
that.
There was the National Economic Council 1,000.
Shows will play out.
Yes.
By beyond and above ability. We have seen this where some state for some months, and now you pockets of workers. But what is realistic is that, but you NECA and just before, yeah.
Talking about backlog of salaries that it have about 4 months, been with as they are paid.
Yeah,
so
and then those. Quarter 3, as political anxiety deepens. Nigerian Stock Exchange shed 1.9 trillion naira in the 3rd quarter. And of course, the lead story has to do with the politics of who becomes the candidate of the APC in the governorship race for Lagos. There are other headlines there from Nigeria at 58, and these are senior citizens who are responding to the celebration of Nigeria's 58th independence. Buhari will fight for Nigeria's unity. Kumoye, crime against citizens weigh Nigeria down. Saraki calls for more citizens' participation in governance. Don't lose hope, Dogara tells Nigerians. And PDP and Atiku pass no vote of confidence.
All right, now to the editorial for this morning, and we're taking it from the Daily Sun newspaper. It's titled Nigeria at 58. Well, let's read some portions of it. We today join Nigerians all over the world in wishing the country a happy 58th anniversary. At independence, the country was described as by Time magazine as Africa's showpiece state. We are still an African leader in many spheres of existence, even if we did fall short of the wondrous expectations of the founding fathers and the international community in 1960. Like all newly independent states, we lacked so many vital necessities, including education. About only 40 PhDs could be counted then. Then skills in all fields, from engineering to medicine to architecture, to say nothing of administrative skills. Now, 58 years in the life of a nation is considerable a period, but knowing nations that have subsisted for thousands of years, we are hopeful that the past 58 years had been a vital learning period, and that today we should rededicate our commitment to the federation and to building an enviable nation that would proudly take its place among the community of nations. Now, your comments, Ebayo.
Yeah, just quickly before I comment on the independence editorial by the Sun, let me quickly remind our viewers that there's good news. The flood that has ravaged our nation is receding. As at the earlier on, there were 441,251 persons who had been displaced in 50 local governments. The last figure given by NEMA is now 89,549. So far, about 182 persons were injured throughout the period. 180 lives, unfortunately, were lost. 13,000 houses were destroyed, and presently, the states that are seriously affected are Kogi, Delta, Kwara, particularly in Patiji area, Kogi in Kotom Karfi, as well as Benue, Kebbi, Anambra, Bayelsa, and parts of Rivers State. The Vice President embarked on shuttle visits to the flood-ravaged areas, and as at now, the water level at Lokoja had risen to about 11.6. It is now dropping back to about 10.6 where it was. In 2012, where there was that flood.
That devastating one.
Yes, it rose to about 12.6. So we are out of the danger now. And Lado Dam.
That's Lokoja.
Yes.
Bayelsa is indeed calling for a national emergency.
Yes,
in
because
the state.
all the water that is coming
That's
is
right.
ending up in the delta at the end of the day. That is where the receptacle for all the water before it enters the sea. So something has to be done about that. But meanwhile, coming back to the editorial is lamenting that at independence, Nigeria, that was described as Africa's showpiece of states, has not met the expectation of the world community. And the editorial is emphasizing that if attention is paid to income inequality, as well as equitable resource distribution and infrastructural development, Nigeria will meet the expectation of the people, and particularly be able to turn our bigger asset, the population, which is becoming almost a liability now, to an asset to propel our development.
All right, Bayo Altebi, that's where we'll pause you for today. And to continue with the program for this morning, we thank you for your comments as usual. We hope to see you again.
Thank you. Enjoy your independence celebration.
Yes, and are you inviting us somewhere for independence celebration?
No, you're at work, so...
No, the work will be over very soon. Thank you indeed. And this is Good Morning Nigeria, and the program continues in just a moment.
Fake news which is shared for malicious purposes is a danger to our peace and security in Nigeria. Misinformation as fake news is a serious threat to our hard-earned democracy and promotes hatred and misunderstanding between our communities. We are all responsible for stopping the spread of fake news in its tracks. So, always check the source and credibility of any news item. Say no to fake news. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information.
This traffic is terrible. What is your map saying?
Don't worry. The map says it will soon clear.
Driver! Hold! This bush woman. Madam, come on! See this whole matter you do, Baro! Shut up! Driver! Shut up! Okay. Dead! Driver! At the end, there's a T-junction. What? See? Then there's another road that follows again. Driver! Papa, you finally came. Don't you know that with Glow Agassi, I will always be ahead?
With Glow Agassi, enjoy 125% more data to get ahead. Dial *777#. The largest data network. Glow, grandmasters of data.
For years, the NTA has been promoting science, technology, arts and crafts under the tagged name National Children's Expo. We are set with another edition as we gather children around Nigeria, junior category ages 6 to 12 and senior category ages 13 to 18. The theme for Expo 2018, achieving self-sufficiency in agriculture, meeting the challenges of security and exposition of alternative energy as pathways to national development. Date, October 21st to 25th, 2018. Venue, NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja. We are set to celebrate the best of innovation across the country. For more information, please call the following numbers. NTA ETV, promoting learning.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous, whether you do it for fun or for political gains. Real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
brought us as usual.
As usual.
You have no problem. For the three put
You are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah?
You take that one. You take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice. Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about. Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food. I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobu to come to chocolate rice made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a backgrounder for our conversation this morning, let's join our correspondent, Adamu Sambo.
Fellow Nigerians, as we celebrate the 58th anniversary of our independence, we know we are on the right path. We have so much for which we should be grateful and in which we should rightly take pride.
The journey, President Muhammadu Buhari said, is not finished, as Nigeria is an ambitious nation whose citizens have every right to look to the future with confidence and optimism.
We are gradually strengthening the economy with a stable naira and falling inflation rate. We are building an economy that is moving away from over-reliance on oil. These positive developments are the result of our collective pursuit of a common vision through hard work and dedication after the missed opportunities and disappointments that followed the return to democracy.
Despite vicious and stiff resistance, the president said his administration is also making progress in the fight against corruption and recovery of stolen public funds and assets.
The shameful past practice of the brazen theft of billions of naira is no more. Shady oil deals and public contracts that were never delivered have become things of the past. Consequently, we have done more with less in infrastructural developments.
While efforts are on course in the Niger Delta to clean up polluted lands, restore homes, reestablish livelihoods, and strengthen the people's capacity to guarantee a brighter future for themselves and the country, the government is, however, worried that the age-long conflict between farmers and herders is being exploited by those seeking to plant seeds of discord and disunity amongst the people.
I must warn that the perpetrators of murder and general mayhem in the name of defending or protecting herders or farmers will face the full wrath of the law. We urge all peace-loving Nigerians to reject any simplistic portrayal of this conflict as either religious or ethnic-based.
The president paid glowing tribute to not only the nation's youth for playing a central role in Nigeria's progress and development, but also the armed forces and other security agencies who work under the most difficult conditions to keep the country safe.
As their commander-in-chief, I assure these our gallant men and women that I will continue to empower them by deepening their professionalism and providing all the necessary force multipliers and enablers required for them to prevail on the field. I am looking into all reported cases of inadequacies in relation to their entitlements, their welfare, and those of their families.
President Buhari used the forum to express concern over the misuse of new technologies to provoke passions and stir tensions in the land.
We must all rise to the responsibility of shutting out those disruptive and corrosive forces that hide in today's world of social media. Otherwise, all the progress we have made as a democracy since 1999 is at stake.
The Nigerian leader also restated his commitment to free, fair, and credible elections, saying INEC will not only remain exactly independent, but properly staffed and resourced so that Nigerians can continue to make their choices for the government that rule in their name through the ballot box. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
All right, thank you, Adamu Sambo, for that package. Now, joining us here in the studio to discuss the subject matter is Femi Adesina, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Thank you for coming to our program this morning, Femi.
Thank you.
All right, and we also have Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, a researcher, teacher, and public affairs analyst. He's here with us again. We're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much.
And we're also being joined by Professor Joy Ngozi Ezilo, Professor of Public Law, former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Trafficking, and founder of WACOL, Tama SAC, providing free legal and aid services to women and children. Good morning, Prof. It's nice to see you this morning. You're also a public affairs analyst, which I've done over the years. Good morning and welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning and happy independence from Enugu, the coast city.
Thank you. Kinsley?
All right. Thank you very much, guest, for being with us on the program. Let's begin with Mr. Femi Adesina. We'll have to release him, of course, midway into the conversation so that he joins the president's entourage at the Independence Day celebration at Eagle Square, right at the heart of Nigeria's capital. Mr. Adesina, let's begin with you by posing a question. What was the president's objective in the themes that he raised in his Independence Day broadcast, which we'll listen to about an hour or so ago?
Well, I believe there are many, but central is to raise hope. He talked about missed opportunities, and there are many in Nigeria. Nigeria is replete with missed opportunities. But at the tail end of it, he said, yes, we have not got there, but we're on the way there. So I believe that it's a broadcast that is meant to kindle hope in Nigerians, that though we have missed so many opportunities to join the league of developed nations, to go beyond where we are, all is not lost. We can still get there.
What is the basis for the hope? Do we look back and say, well, yes, despite the fact that we complain about some of our current national conditions, there are some things that indeed we have gotten right?
Yes, you just put your finger on it. There are some things we have gotten right, and there are some things we have also identified as the problems. And having identified the problems, solving them will be a lot easier. I believe Nigeria will never get back to where we were, having seen where we can get to now with a focused administration, an administration that can use resources for the good of the people. I believe that we can only make progress. We won't go back.
All right, thank you, Femi. Let's turn to Abdurrahman. There are identified mistakes made. There are also identified options going forward, according to the president's speech. Now, you listened to the president. Yes. What can you make of this speech and the issues he raised?
Well, the issues that Mr. President raised are issues that are on the front burner, issues that border on corruption, insecurity, management, or if you like, mismanagement of opportunities and, that he thought, in which is the thinking of all Nigerians, are things that's supposed to be confronted head-on. Because no nation will develop, no nation will attract foreign direct investment. Nobody will want to bring their investment to
a country that is not safe. And then nobody will want to bring their resources to where you could not get efficient managers of resources. And then because the world is a competitive place where people are competing for available resources, it means that you have to do a lot of things to make your country better. And for me, these are issues that needed to be tackled. But again, there is a clear difference between initiating a problem and then actions to tackle those problems. So where the problem has always been is not in the identification of problems, but solving them, because it will require bringing man and resources together. And then if you don't have the will to manage both, resources will go into solving problems. At the end of it all, there will be no result. But all the issues Mr. President has raised are issues that Nigerians want to see that an end is put to them so that Nigeria can progress.
All right, Abdul Rahman, thank you very much. Let's go over to Professor Joy Ezilo. We earlier introduced her from our Enugu Network studios. Professor Joy Ezilo, let's have your take on the highlights of the President broadcast a while ago.
I think I can describe it in several R's. One is reflective, is responsive, is reassuring, re-energizing, reconciliatory, but at the same time reaffirming authority. And for me also, most importantly, is refreshingly different from the previous speeches of Mr. President. So I really like that speech. I know people may not agree. We're not going into the content and the veracity, to assess, but on the face of it, I will say I like that speech, and that speech is really reassuring to Nigerians. And on occasion to mark an independence, I think that's the way to be. So I congratulate all of Mr. President for that speech.
Why not go to specifics now? If there are areas that we feel are so pertinent and properly handled by the speech, can we share that with you, your own thoughts with respect to any particular area that you feel should be further highlighted?
Why I said it's refreshingly different is that I heard things I've never heard before from not just Mr. President Buhari, but even other past presidents, that are, even as ordinary citizen, I wanted to hear in a national speech like that. For example, issues around human rights, issues about human trafficking, which we know is a major problem that affects Nigeria, both as a source country, a receiving country, and a transit country, is also one that is a reflection of our state of our economy, is a reflection of the livelihood challenges. I am very happy to hear Mr. President talk about gender equality, talk about sustainable development goals, talk about climate change. Actually, is a really very impressive speech, and I'm happy about it. Because take, for example, because first is to recognize a problem, and of which he did that very well, to take stock, and then to be reflective, and saying, yes, we haven't gotten it right. These are things that we are doing. These are steps we are taking. Of course, if we go into the steps, we can debate, we can argue whether they have succeeded and whether that is the best of approach. But I want to leave it aside for now. But then also to take certain aspects. Because for many, for example, the United Nations Special Rapporteur for Human Trafficking for 6 years. And for that 6 years, I traveled around the world, every part of the world, to over 100 countries. And there is no one that I did not find Nigerians who were trafficked. And I tried to bring this was between 2008 and 14. And I tried to reach out to authority and the government to say it will even help us if our president, if our high officials or persons, administrators begin to talk about this problem. Even mentioning it means that it exists, it affects Nigerians. And then you can address the root causes, the push and pull factors. But they weren't even listening. But this, because you hear speeches from other presidents and other countries, then they are connected with the people. And that's why I said the speech is responsive as well. It is responsive to the yearnings of Nigeria, to even the fears and concerns. Take, for example, on the issue of election, when he talks about assuring independence of INEC. I think it will resonate with a lot of people because we are worried about what is coming out from Osun State and from other elections, and then we know that the major general election is coming up. Because for some people analyzing, looking at Osun State election, we say this has taken us back to 2007. I hear some civil society people and some of my colleagues who monitored the election, and we don't want it. And for him to say, look, we're going to do this. He talked about the issue of herdsmen and farmers. So it also, and then clearly, that's why I said it, a reaffirmed authority, that the impunity would stop. So it is for us as Nigerians to accept this speech and then also to hold Mr. President to account to those speech, because it presents us what we can say, look at, this is the blueprint. This is what he has said, and we'll take him up going forward. So I like the speech. I know Nigerians, a lot of things are happening in the country that also gives us concern, but then we need some hope, because it's enthusiasm that drives the world. And if he were just to come out and tell us about all our problems, then we will all be frowning by now. I know some people will still be frowning, but let us be happy and also celebrate the independence, because having being an independent, when you look at nationalistic movement and how we came by that independence as Africans, is not something we can take for granted. I was in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa recently, and they also pride themselves as not having been colonized. But then when we look at some of the issues and other developmental challenges, especially around planning and town planning, someone said, they are like a person born without a parent. You didn't have someone to mentor you or to bring you to. Then, of course, at a stage, you struggle for self-determination. And then we got our independence, and we played a role in also independence of several other African countries. So far with the speech, fine. And then we can begin to really analyze the details of it, some of which I've done. Take, for example, the climate change and the pledge to clean up the Niger Delta. I know some people will say, they are becoming impatient for good reasons. And there are some aspects people will say it's delayed. And we know in law, we said even justice delayed is like justice denied. So what we need now is speed to match this speech, knowing also that Nigerians are getting impatient about several things, about livelihood challenges, about look at just the strike. People know that the salary, that's one area maybe where people would have liked to see him mention. But of course, for good reason, he wouldn't get into the nitty-gritty of all of it, and it is not possible in such a short speech to capture things. But I think it's important that when you talk about people's right to work, and right to earn a livelihood. You work and you get paid, and people are not getting it. You wonder, why should we, as a nation, 58 years on, be doing that to ourselves? The president recognized the inequalities, but I want to say the inequality is growing on a scale that is unknown, to us. The disparity between the rich and the poor. People are grappling, people are battling even to feed, people are battling to access health. And then yet, some people...
All right, Professor Joy Zillo, sorry, we're having to pause you and then return to the other guests with us here in the studios. We'll come back to you at our Enugu Network studios. Let's bring in again Femi Additional into the conversation. Well, Femi, let's, some persons will take a look at the national mood and also try to evaluate what the president has said in his broadcast. Has there been an attempt to key into the national mood, address the national mood, and touch on some really very vital points?
Thank you. What I'll just recommend to those people who feel that maybe the national mood has not been reflected as they would want to see is what Professor Izilo has said, the reassurance in the speech. At any given time in a country, you need that kind of reassurance. It's possible that you have a broadcast that will send you further into despondency. What then will the president have achieved? Nothing. In fact, it will be a negative broadcast in that sense. But this is a positive one because it's talking of the possibilities of Nigeria. We missed it in the past. We're on the road to it. And we will get there. For me, I think it's positive. And issues, herdsmen, farmers clashes, elections, safety, security, anti-corruption, economy were all touched. Yes, you can't possibly touch every germane thing in such a broadcast. It's a National Day broadcast, and it's something that should elicit and kindle hope in the hearts of the people. I think by and large that has been largely achieved.
Now we're bringing hope alive again for Nigerians to believe that we've not just lost it all. But Femi, let me take us back, to the beginning of independence. Corruption has been a canker, or if you like, the bane of our national development from the outset of independence. The first coup was blamed on corruption. The subsequent ones, the same thing. And the story is that nothing is on the ground to show that this country is 58, with all the resources available, in the country. Now, the president also spoke about recovery of public funds and assets. He made it emphatic that some people are obstructing the process of recovering these assets. And it's like a stiff resistance on the part of the corporates. Now, how would you assess the president so far in the area of fighting corruption? Of course, we know that he is also the AU champion for the fight against the corruption.
Yes, thank you very much. Like you mentioned, the first coup also spoke about corruption. But then, recall that what Nzegu said was that they took 10% of contracts and all that. But over the years, what did we see? They began to take 90%. In some cases, they took 100%. So it really got out of hand in Nigeria. But we are at a point in which the system has to fight back. And that is what is happening. Corruption is being fought. It's a stiff battle. But then we are not where we used to be in the attitude towards corruption. Like it is said, corruption was under the table at a point. At another point, it came right on top of the table. Today, it's no longer on the table because there is consequence for brazen corruption. And I think we are making some progress. We are not where we are going yet. We are still far from it, but we are making progress.
All right, thank you. Abu Rahman, again, I would like you to speak to our national mood, where we are, and whether, we can galvanize ourselves as a people to say, listen, the future is our hope. We're going to work towards that future. Are the ingredients available?
Well, to some large extent, you could say the ingredients are available. And for those that want to key into it, already key into it. And those that don't want to key into it are doing everything humanly possible to score to that very particular mode. Why am I saying this? You have people that don't think for themselves. They don't act for themselves. They always wait for people that are equally responsible for their poverty, for their unemployment, for a lot of things that are happening to them to give them direction. And then you have people that have went themselves out of that very particular cycle to say that I could be responsible for my action. I am supposed to take responsibility for whatever I need to do. For instance, the fallacy that has been taught over time is that it is government that's supposed to give jobs to the young persons, not young persons striving to make ends meet. But we shouldn't forget the fact that it is our responsibility to feed ourselves first. And that makes us a striving being, and that you need to strive to make ends meet. And you could see people that strive to make ends meet becoming employers of labor. And today, you have somebody that has mortgaged his own destiny to a political office holder, that, okay, if this person is no longer in power, it means I could no longer have access to resources, to employment. Such persons, they move together with the so-called benefactors. But you have young Nigerians that have been doing wonderfully well, that have been adding value to the economy in the area of ICT. These are people that are creating the Nigerian value. The mood we're talking about is for those persons that have something positive to offer their fatherland. There are people that, if they leave the shores of this country, they bring us glories and good news. There are people that within this country, they are doing wonderfully well. But again, all of this put together as a nation, the Nigerian project has not been able to galvanize everybody to be on the same page, which is natural anywhere in the world. But the aspiration should be that we should preserve Nigeria first before any other thing. But again, you have a lot of tendencies, a lot of persons that don't even believe in Nigeria in the first instance, and they want to see Nigeria dissolve today or Nigeria dissolve tomorrow. To such persons, we want them to learn lessons from countries that have divided. For instance, if we cast our mind back to what happened in Sudan, people felt that as soon as South Sudan is granted independence, that be it. So that be it, and then they're on their way to greatness. Today, there is no peace in South Sudan, despite being granted independence. So the vision and the mission of every Nigerian should be how to preserve Nigeria so that we can leverage on the resources that Nigeria has. For instance, if you talk about population, you have population in the north, but basically you have a lot of industries in the south. And then in every country, population is a great asset today. So you need the population in the north as well as the industries in the south. For instance, if you sit somewhere in Lokoja, that is Kogi State capital, and then you see the trailers that are leaving north to south, which means that north is impacting south in terms of providing what? Food stuff and other things. And then the income that they need in the north is coming from the market in the south. The same way manufactured goods are leaving south to north. So the vision is not something that the president will have to say the vision is for everybody to own one house at a time. Then if the president says that, what are you doing to own that very particular house? So the vision of everybody is equally important.
Yeah, well, Abdul Rahman, I'm sorry. We had earlier indicated that we were going to release Femi Adesina midway into the conversation, but let me pop this question to him, arising from part of what you said and what Professor Ezilo also mentioned. Is there, as it were now, a national consensus on where and what Nigeria should be? And if, assuming there is a consensus, what is the role of the elite class in propelling us to that destination?
Well, I wouldn't quite say there is a national consensus on what Nigeria should be, but I think we are getting to a place that there is a consensus on what Nigeria should not be. We all know what we don't want this country to be.
Namely?
We don't want it to be a country of rent-seeking people. We don't want it to be a country of just potentials that are never realized. We don't want it to be just a country that thrives only on oil, and when oil prices crash, the nation crashes with it. We know what we don't want this country to be, and gradually we are getting out of what we don't want to be. And I think eventually it will take us to what we now want to be. We will have a consensus on the country we want. But one thing that I believe is crucial now that we are getting to, we know the kind of people we don't want to lead us again in Nigeria.
What gives you that confidence to make the assertion? Because some persons will say, take a look at the political shenanigans that we are having ahead of the 2019 elections. Yes. And they probably will just shake their heads and say, look, what's going on?
No. I think eventually Nigerians will speak. Nigerians will determine who leads them. And some people who are pretending to be those who can lead the country will not get there.
All right, Femi, pause. Kirian, let's return to Professor Ezilo. I have a question for her. Professor Ezilo, if you could abbreviate your response to this question, because we are pressed for time now. Is there a national consensus on what and where Nigeria should be? And in particular, assuming there is a national consensus, what should be the increased role of the elite class in realizing this goal?
I think I would say yes, a bit, because if majority of Nigerians, Nigeria they can truly be proud of. In Nigeria they can call their own. In Nigeria where they will feel, if you don't have any other country like me, that it is working for me. It is working for the rich, it's working for the poor. In Nigeria where we don't have the type of inefficiency that is in the system. where we can even take certain things for granted, where we can take security for granted, where we can have power and steady supply of power so that people can work and fend for themselves, towards their sustainable life, getting their livelihood, which is a major challenge. So for about really choosing of leaders, yes, we want our vote to count, and I know that many Nigerians would like to see their vote count, but that is also increasingly a challenge. And we don't know, and many are apprehensive also, that their vote may not count. So if we get that reassurance that now at the public speech marking the independence and the last one before election, and the president is telling INEC, work. I think INEC, we want to see INEC of Professor Professor Jega, that restored confidence in INEC. We don't want to retrogress. We don't want to take one step forward and 2 steps backward. So for Nigeria, we want a new Nigeria. And I think that new Nigeria is possible. And with the speech that we've had from Mr. President that rekindled hope in that new Nigeria, I think we now need to match our words with action.
We want a new Nigeria and, of course, a new crop of leaders, because if you ask many Nigerians, they will tell you that people have been recycled for the past 40 years. And who knows when we'll begin to think positively in terms of governance. That's just by the way. But let's return to Femi for his final thoughts on this conversation. Oga Femi, I want you to look at the issue of diversification. The nation has relied on one product for a very long time. And today, this administration is talking about diversifying the economy, and it has also started from agriculture and other sectors. Now, what would be your thoughts on the step taken by this administration towards diversifying the economy and re-engineering the manufacturing sector?
Yes, I think we got to a point that we just could no longer pay lip service to diversification. It was either diversify or die. If we didn't diversify, the country was going to die economically. Because look at oil prices, 2014 at about $100 per barrel. At a point, it went to $143 per barrel. And suddenly, in 2015, it crashed to about $37 to the barrel. And when that happens internationally to oil prices, Nigeria just crashes with it. And it got to a point that the administration knew that we could no longer continue to live that way. So it put its mouth where its money is. It put a lot of resources into agriculture and into solid minerals. The former minister in that sector, who is now the governor-elect in Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, drew a 25-year roadmap for that sector. You will see that if we continue with that roadmap, he's left, but the Minister of State that worked with him is there, so there's continuity. Let's look at what has worked for Lagos. We have seen from 1999 how Lagos went from one leadership to the other, all of the same tendency, and the state is working. Also, if we follow through with these programs for agriculture, for solid minerals, we'll get to a point that Nigeria will not depend on oil again. Oil will still be important to us, but it will not be the sole commodity that we need to continue to survive as a country. I would say by and large, this administration has done well and is still on the road to do a lot better in terms of diversifying the Nigerian economy.
All right, Mr. Femi, additional special advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, I would like to thank you for being part of our discussion this morning. Thank you. So we'll let you go join them at Eagle Square. Thanks a lot for being around. Okay, we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll take your comments that have come in by tweets, and we pop the last set of questions to our guests.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
To the outer framers, the hat tippers, the fringe goers, you don't need to hide anymore. Try Dettol Even Tone. It cleans and helps to reduce the appearance of blemishes caused by oil, dirt and germs, giving your skin a healthy feel for an even better you. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Dettol soap is now also available for 100 Naira only.
Chief. Good morning, sir. You are here already?
No, now my spirit day, my body day for house. What kind of question is that? Were you not the one that fixed this meeting for 8 a.m.? You are now coming by 10 a.m. and start asking me jab questions.
But Chief, now, I'm sorry. Don't you also go late for meetings sometimes? You know now, African time thing.
No more African time. And no more pancaking of face during office hours. At the end of the day, we will lose valuable time. We will not make progress. If we want to move this nation forward, we must treat business as business and respect time. Change begins with me.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry. Can we go for the meeting now, Chief?
Later.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we're reaching you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's take some of the tweets that have come in now from our viewers. Adeniyi Bello has this tweet. We have made a lot of progress. The only thing left, that's according to him, is employment, which should be available for all, not just using power positions to employ. God bless Nigeria.
All right, from Godwin Johnson, he says, politics with everything without recourse to who we are before God. Human life is not sacred anymore. We have taken decadence, bad leadership, poor policies, corruption, and anomalies as a way of life. We have refused to learn from our mistakes. I pray God to bless Nigeria.
And Bo, SPY, has this tweet. I'm happy with the progress of Nigeria so far. But as a nation, we have to work on our democracy, power supply, entrepreneurship development, minimum wage, payment of salaries, and others to make Nigeria a better place. Happy independence, and God bless Nigeria.
Now from Sani Michael Omakoji, Nigeria at 58, whether we notice it or not, we have made progress in the telecom sector, ICT and banking sectors. However, gross nepotism, inconsistent policies, and greed have hampered Nigeria's development over the years. May God help Nigeria sooner than expected.
All right, sir, those are the tweets that we are taking, but there is also a Vox Pop. Our correspondent went to town to speak to Nigerians on what they think of Nigeria at 58.
We are in peace now. If you look at 4 years ago, Nigeria is not, everywhere is scattered. It's not like now.
We celebrate, we thank God for everything. We thank God for our life. We thank God that everything is moved very well.
Actually, the journey so far, since I was giving birth to, I've been in Nigeria, and I think we've not really achieved what we ought to achieve. And we're adding another 8 to our age. So I just pray, as we are going into another phase of life, I pray that God will help our leaders and for them to make a better place for us, we as the students.
Yeah, of course, Nigeria has something so much to celebrate. As a country, God has brought us this far, so we have to celebrate our nation. We have to celebrate the independence.
I've always been optimistic about what I want to see about independence. Well, for me, we've not really gone far talking about development in Nigeria, but I hope that the country will get better. And I look forward to a more prosperous nation where we meet up to the target of where we're supposed to be.
All right, the comments there from the street, some Nigerians speaking to our correspondent. Let's go back to Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman, well, the president, of course, has spoken as the father of the nation, as the saying goes, but at the state and local government and even community levels, what sense do we get with regard to the feeling of Nigerianness, the health of the country, and where we ought to be and where indeed we are headed?
Well, as any developing nation, there are bound to be challenges, but the capacity and resolve of the leadership to make a great difference is what has always given people hope. And that was why I was alluding to the fact that the president captured almost all the issues that needed to be addressed. But where we're always lacking is action. Action is always impeded by a lot of tendencies, from issues of federalism to issues of local autonomy to issues of ethnic nationalism to issues of even religion. These are all perversions that ought not to be. But because man is given to perverting everything in pursuit of his own selfish interests, we have a set of leaders over the years that have perverted everything in chase of their own interests as against the interests of the people. If you go to the local government today, the only time you know that there is a local government is when there is federal allocation. And as soon as that allocation is shared, the office will come under lock and keys. The only thing, again, that you know that there is a semblance of government or governance at the local government level is when you see a police officer wearing uniform and passing by, or when you see teachers going to the classroom. This is when you know that, okay, there is a semblance of government. But if you talk about healthcare delivery, if you talk about paving of road, if you talk about market, whatever will add value. So there is a total lack of governance at the local government level. And then at the state level, where you have a semblance of governance, everything is concentrated in the state capital. If you move 20 kilometers out of the state capital, you think you are in another country entirely. And then this issue of lack of autonomy for local government. The local government is supposed to be the training ground for aspiring politicians that is supposed to be tested. They will learn the rudiment of administration. But again, the structures are not there because you have the governor and picking who becomes what at the local government level, and then you have this joint account between the local government and the state government. So even initiatives are killed at the local government level because you cannot initiate anything. The governor initiates projects and programs and ask to sign that, okay, there is going to be counterpart funding between the local government and the state government. So nothing is happening. And that is why if today salaries are not paid for 2 months, people will start committing suicide. Because the entire economy of Nigeria, apart from, say, 4 or 5 states across the federation, is dependent on subvention from federal government. And we are blessed in so many ways that Nigeria and Nigerians could make a living without having to commit suicide. But what people are looking for today is bureaucratic employment. You know, nobody wants to do anything because even if you are a businessman, businesswoman, a petty trader at the local government level or at the state level, your customers, majority of your customers are civil servants, from teachers to whatever level of cadre of workers they have at the state level or at the local government level, so that majority of them always wait for salary to be paid before they patronize businesses. So if people are not empowered, if the only job that can sustain people is just the bureaucracy, then there is a problem. Most of the countries that are developed, that are developing today, are countries that people are making a living using their hands, their brain, and then they are creating values. And that is why previously Martos said population is a cost on the nation. But today, we are beginning to say that population is a blessing if this population is well endowed and they are using their brain, they are using their minds to create wealth for the nation.
In other words, you're talking about a productive population.
Yes,
yes.
And,
that's right.
And again, economy has shifted from resources to brain.
To brain,
and they're putting creativity at the center of every practice. Now, let's return to Professor Joy Ezilo. Prof, you may not be a frontline politician, but I am sure that you understand how best to play politics. Now, let me ask you this question. You heralded the president for taken up some issues concerning gender. Now, looking at 58 years of independence, we've had those days, names like Margaret Ebo, Fumila Ransom Kuti, and so many other women who played vital role in governance. Now, today, women are saying that they are not being carried along. Some are requesting for a waiver to be able to purchase forms to run for elective posts. How would you assess women participation in governance, in recent years?
That's one way. Women have not really participated in government of Nigeria since transition. When you look at the percentage, it's still under 10%, actually 7%, or I'm just approximating it. It should be about 6.4% nationally in terms of women occupying elective position. And if you look at appointed position, it's not better. And we have had successive elections from 1999 till date. Actually, we regressed post-2015 election because I had the opportunity to write an academic paper assessing the general election. So when you talk about democracy, it's about inclusion. It's about social justice, and it's about recognition of diversity. It's about recognition of, because if you look at Nigeria, is made of men, women, and youth. And for long, women and youth also have been agitating that they be included so that they can exercise their right to participate in the government of their country. That is recognized both in our constitution, but importantly in the first ever declaration and proclamation on human rights. That is Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That is commemorating 70 years. The African Charter, of course, very close to us, recognized this. Women's right to participate in public and political processes. But when you look at representation of women, then you ask yourself, can even any country develop standing on one foot? Because we need to get, development has to be driven by people. And if it's driven by one gender, then maybe that's why we have the level of corruption we have, the level of greed, that people who capture state power never looks back to think of where they are coming from, the majority of the poor that are crying out about their survival and development. So definitely we need to, that's why I said I'm happy that the president mentioned this in his speech, and I hope that we can pay serious attention to it, because I believe that participation of women of leadership is about inclusion. It will make me also feel, very, very patriotic Nigerian citizen, knowing that my country will look out for me. And with regard to this, we need affirmative action beyond the issue of waiver of nomination forms that you're talking about. Unfortunately, past government that set up Electoral Reform Commission or committee, including even the present administration of President Buhari, have not paid attention to implementation of those recommendations, which talks about, because proportional representation, what we have, first past the post primary that we have, first past, it doesn't really admit of, despite the fact that we have a lot of women aspirants, but the process always excludes them. And they end up maybe with smaller parties that will eventually, of course, it's good for people to belong to whatever party they want to, but then they will not be elected under that platform, because even the party doesn't even have any seat they have won. Require deliberate government policy. We have national gender policy, but actually I think it has exceeded because it's supposed to have been by 2015 to have achieved the target of 35% in elective and appointive position. And of course, we are in 2018. So for me, even as a lawyer, I know that policy, even though it's a policy, ought not to be existing because it has not achieved any target. The target is set for itself, and 2015 has come and gone. So it's time to go back to the drawing board, reformulate that based on feedback, and look at what will work. Because the environment is not enabling high monetization of politics, political violence, thuggery, godfatherism, of which women don't have as many godmothers as men, and of course seeing politics as business. They don't think that investing in women and sponsoring their candidature, they will be able to get their returns as much as they will get from the men. But really, these are very serious issues, and the issue of equality that is existing in the society, whether amongst gender, whether amongst different groups, and then depending on your location, is one that the government will have to look into and then ensure that we are included. Democracy is about...
All right, Professor Izilo, thank you very much. Just to return to Abdul Rahman, the youth demographic is one that has been touted in recent years with regard to the assets that the country has. But again, some persons would say that if you take a look at the young population, they have been socialized in an era when things have all gone wrong. I mean, some of them refer to themselves as the generator generation, for instance. What is required to be done across board with regard to infusing hope into this particularly critical youth demographic?
Well, first of all, I want us to look at our educational system. What is being taught, both at the formal and informal level. You've just touched the informal one, that is the role of socialization. And the youth of today, I think, took their lessons from what is happening in the society. What is being taught, especially our curriculum in the university, is that you are certified to be worthy in character and learning, and then you'll be given employment. So all you need to do is just to earn the certificate, and you go to your father's house and sleep. Employment will come to you. So that is why once you're having conversation, the next thing you will hear is employment, employment, employment. The youth are not being taught to be hardworking, that what you become is a value of your struggles and how you are able to conquer challenges. So, and that is why majority of the youth, once this employment is no longer coming, and then there is a demand on them by the society, especially the family, you are a graduate for God's sake and you want me to start feeding you, then the person is pushed out there. And by the time they go out there, whatever will offer them income becomes what they will accept. So the issue of morality, the issue of preaching in the mosque, the issue of preaching in the church and the mosque will not make sense to the youth, and that is why most of the youth are associated with crimes. But those youth that understand the fact that before you can become successful, a price must be paid, and you need to do something extraordinary. Those are the youth that you find in offices that are trying to hawk solutions, that are trying to do things and that is why ICT is beginning to showcase those youth that are serious. I'm not talking about those youth that are used to going to conferences to shout and then be given stipend. I'm talking about youth that understand that before you get to a certain position in life, you must pay a price. So the youth demographic is very huge in Nigeria, but the youth demographic, to say the least, is more or less like a drone. They're waiting to take from the society. They are not willing to contribute to the society because they feel that the society is owing them something, and that thing must be given to them, or they take it forcefully. So this is one of the challenges. All right, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for your thoughts on this very conversation. Thank you, Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, who's a researcher, teacher, and a public affairs analyst. It's been nice having you on the show this morning. And Professor Joy Ezilo, we want to appreciate you for being part of our show this morning and making very thoughtful contributions to this conversation. Professor Joy Ngozi Ezilo is a professor of public law, a former United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Trafficking, and founder of WACOL, Tamasak, providing free legal aid and services to women and children. It's been nice having you. Good morning, and once again, happy Independence Anniversary. All right, Kingsley.
All right, so yeah, that does it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Of course, we would like to thank all our guests who've been around, and indeed Nigerians who have tuned in to this edition of the program, the 58th Independence Anniversary of Nigeria. We wish you a lovely celebration. My name is Kingsley Osadolo. Good Morning Nigeria returns tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock.
And I am Kirian Rumayo, wishing you all the best at Independence.
NTA. You can't beat the rich.
Disaster occurs on frequent basis. Some we hear of, others we do not. Terrorism, flood, fire, earthquake, car or plane crashes, building collapse, and even armed robbery, each bringing assets and revenue loss, human mortality, and in 90% of survivors, great loss of hope. Flooding is the most common of all environment hazards, and it regularly claims over 20,000 lives per year and adversely affects about 75 million people worldwide. Nigeria has had its fair share. Who can say